So, the notorious Madame Web 2024. Well, everyone piled in and had a good laugh, making fun of it, saying it was incompetent and terrible and close to unwatchable, and just having a good laugh at it. And I looked at the footage and I thought, yes, but it looks kind of mildly entertaining. It has a more interesting idea behind it than Venom or Morbius. Also, the movie's probably not as bad as people say it is. This is just the social media thing, the conformist thing is to all pile in and laugh at it. So I think people are going over the top with the criticism. I don't know, we will see. So I have now seen the movie many months after everyone else. And it's not a case of the bar was set so low, my expectations were so low that the fact the movie was slightly better than those super low expectations, and that's why I actually thought the movie was not that terrible. I don't think that because my expectations are not super low. My expectations are I'm expecting a at best average movie, although probably more realistically it's going to be below average. But as I say, the central idea behind it has some appeal, and so I was sort of to some extent on its side. I'm not here to just laugh at it. If the movie turns out to be pretty much unwatchable garbage, it will not be a shock or a surprise. But I do have some expectations for something okay, and I thought the movie was sort of okay for the most part. Yes, it's not very well made. There are a few moments that just look quite shockingly incompetent for a professional big budget Hollywood movie. Certainly the notorious ADR, automatic dialogue replacement, does rear its head a few times, and it's clearly dubbed on later, and sometimes you can definitely see mouths are not moving, especially the bad guy. There are definitely at least two times when it was very noticeable his mouth was not moving when there was dialogue on screen. So it's not been the ADR has been very poorly done. Other than that, the thing's competently enough made. It's not well made, but it's not incompetent. My main insight is this. Just before the climax, in the, I don't know, I guess I'm assuming a firework factory, fireworks warehouse, I paused it to go and do something for a few minutes, and I was thinking to myself in that short break, this will really play well on streaming services. This movie will become a more valuable back catalogue title than a lot of the more critically appreciated movies. This has got the makings of a cult movie. The movie's actually perfectly watchable as a streaming movie. If you go to see this in a cinema, this will be so disappointing and underwhelming. You have paid the big bucks, you have travelled the distance, you have you are having to do things on the schedule of the cinema. You know, going to the cinema is such a massive pain in the backside. Whereas when you put a movie on streaming at no extra expense or minimal extra expense, you are willing to take the middle of the road much more than you are in a cinema. And then it really just struck me as my main takeaway, my main insight, which is, oh, this is a streaming movie. This should never have seen the inside of a cinema. It just all makes sense. The movie unlocks as to what it was trying to achieve. The quite small, modest scale of the movie. At the end, the cast list just looked really, really strange to me. It just looked so odd. That is very short. So I paused it and I counted it. I only counted it for once, so I didn't double check. But I counted 31 actors for the whole entire movie. That's including bit part actors who have one line. For a big, I mean, and it is sold as a big action movie. It's not sold as a wee modest film. This is a big comic book, maybe not action epic, but it was certainly not considered to be some tiny nothing. And 31 actors is a really small cast. And when I paused it to go away and do something, I did think to myself, so is this the climax? I mean, surely there's what this is only the end of the second act. There's surely a bit more story development to go here. If this is the climax, I mean that's a fairly abrupt climax, quite a short movie really. And when I saw the timer, there was only something like 20 minutes left on the recording. So I realised, yeah, this is definitely the climax. So it's quite a small, modest movie, just the scope, the size, the length of it. It is. And visually, the movie looks quite bland. It doesn't look like film. It has that digital video look you get on many, many streaming movies. People complain streaming movies just don't look right. They just don't have that visual richness of something that is designed to go into a cinema. And this movie has that very similar, kind of almost simple look to it, as though, I don't know, the lack of grain or something on the film means that it just doesn't, it just looks like people on film sets or on nice clean film locations rather than real places. I don't know, I'm just saying visually, after I had that realisation that this is essentially just a streaming movie, and then the visual look of the movie clicks into place. Yes, this is what it looks like. This looks like a modestly budgeted streaming movie. I do not know what the reported budget is on Madame Web. I am assuming it is in the $80 million region. It was not some cheap movie, but the end result looks like a $20–30 million middle of the road streaming movie with very little ambition. The scope of the story, everything. This was never going to survive in a cinema. This was a streaming movie, and that is its ultimate destiny, I think, for the next 10, 15, 20 years. If streaming is still the thing, that is where it will live, and I think it will have a very fruitful, successful life on the streaming service. And maybe it will never make more money than the Venom movies or Morbius, but it will probably end up being a fairly popular back catalogue title that will retain quite a bit of value. Dakota Johnson, she is a very strange actress in that she's a Nepo baby because she has two famous parents, and she is a very flat actress. She has a very flat affect, and you would think someone like that would not really make it in the long run, but she has a strange charisma, and I think she must be quite a limited actress with a limited range because of that flat affect that I do not think she can get rid of. That is her natural way of speaking, and she will never become this great dramatic actress, and yet she has this odd charisma, and her persona is that flat affect of her persona, a bit like Audrey Plaza. She has a flat affect, and somehow it just works. Whenever Dakota Johnson turns up in a movie, my interest in the movie goes up a good notch. I like Dakota Johnson. She is a good actress. She works for whatever reason. Somehow what should be a limitation doesn't seem to be a limitation, and it's all perfectly fine. And she is a compelling, interesting screen presence, and I am very happy to see her in a movie. When she turns up on screen, it is a good thing. Sydney Sweeney is in the movie. Now, just a few weeks ago, I saw her romantic comedy Anyone But You, and I cannot believe that's the same actress. I have never seen her, to the best of my knowledge, in anything else, so I have just seen the two movies, and I cannot imagine that's the same actress. Her voice is different. She looks different, and her age just seems so different between them. In Madame Web, she seems like 14 years old. In the romantic comedy, where she's in bikinis and all the rest of it, she looks like, I don't know, 24. I'm a bit puzzled at how she's managed to de-age between the movies. Very surprising. It was frankly more enjoyable than the very, very poor Venom movies, which were just short. That was the best thing you can say about the two Venom films, which simply disappointed and barely worked. And Morbius was just deeply mediocre. So I did not think Madame Web was a good movie. And it is very much a streaming movie. But I was more or less entertained. It worked okay. It was adequate as a streaming movie. So I would give it 5 out of 10. It was okay, and all the people over the last few months who have piled on to just laugh at it, I think there might be a certain amount of conformist. That's what everyone else is saying, so I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and not do any thinking of my own. Well, I looked at it and I thought this movie was perfectly watchable and competent for the most part. There are definitely some technical crudities, and it's certainly no great script. There's certainly some stretches of logic. She goes to Peru and then back to New York in what seems like, I don't know, 12 hours. At the start, her mother's in what looks like deepest, darkest Peru, the most obscure, hard to get to reach place in the country, and Dakota Johnson on a bus travels to it and gets there and back within about 24 hours. So it's not well written, it's not a clever piece of work, but it is watchable, and I, in my opinion, think it is far better than its very, very bad reputation. But of course it just remains a okay movie at best. And it is fair to say I was on its side, so some of the more goofy moments or stretches of character behaviour which would just really get up your nose if you were against the movie when these things happen, these goofy moments, these silly visuals or stupid character behaviour, it would really annoy you. But if you're on the movie's wavelength like me, I'm just like accepting it, not challenging it. Yeah, whatever, just let it wash over me. Then I thought it was perfectly watchable. I have seen far worse movies, and of the very, very poor Spider-Man extended universe that Sony is doing, it is definitely better than Venom and Morbius. The climax in the firework factory reminded me a lot of a 2007 Nicolas Cage movie called Next, in which he could see the future something like 5 seconds in advance, and so he could always dodge all the bullets, all the punches, and that's pretty much what happens at the climax of Madame Web.